We all need a place where our hearts can breathe at. This is where broken hearts heal, courage is born, and silence finds a voice. Welcome to Motivational Humanity. You are not alone. You don't need a man to be whole, but you've been taught to feel empty without one. And that lie is killing your joy. Let that sit for a second. Because this isn't about hating men. It's about loving yourself so deeply that your joy isn't dependent on anyone staying, changing, or showing up. I remember a night, years ago, when I sat on the cold tile floor of my bathroom with the lights off. It wasn't a dramatic breakdown, it was quiet, soft. The kind of sadness that doesn't scream. I cried into a towel, not because someone had just broken up with me, but because I felt defective for not even having someone to break up with. It was a Tuesday. Just an ordinary, uneventful Tuesday. I had come home from work, heated up leftovers, scrolled past photos of couples holding hands, families vacationing, women smiling next to their boyfriends with captions like, "my person," and something inside me just broke a little. No one said anything cruel to me. No one rejected me that day. But 1,000 invisible messages whispered, "You're not complete until someone picks you." It wasn't loud, but it was relentless. Like a low hum in the background of your life that eventually becomes unbearable. And in that moment, I felt like I didn't belong anywhere. Not to someone, not even to myself. That kind of loneliness, the one we don't post about, the one we keep polished behind productivity and perfection, is the one that eats away at us the most. Because it's not just being alone, it's the meaning we attach to being alone. It's the shame that sneaks in when the world tells you your worth is proven by someone choosing you. It's the fear that maybe there's something unlovable about you. That maybe you're invisible. That maybe everyone else is moving forward and you're standing still in this quiet ache. And here's the thing nobody says aloud. You can feel that same loneliness even when you're in a relationship. You can be lying next to someone, sharing meals, sharing a bed, and still feel like no one sees you. Because it was never about the presence of someone else's body. It was always about the presence of connection. Real, raw, soul-level connection. Psychologists call this emotional isolation. When you feel unseen, misunderstood, or emotionally disconnected, even if you're surrounded by people. It's not a lack of company, it's a lack of belonging. And that sense of disconnection. It doesn't get fixed by adding a man to your life. That hole isn't filled by someone texting you good morning or tagging you in a photo. Because if you don't feel whole without them, you'll always be afraid of them leaving. You'll always perform to be enough. You'll shift to be wanted. You'll live small just to stay chosen. The truth that I had to learn, painfully slowly, is this: loneliness isn't the punishment for not being loved. It's the invitation to finally love yourself. And the moment I stopped seeing my solitude as a curse and started treating it as sacred ground, something changed. I began to come home to myself. Not because someone knocked on the door, but because I stopped abandoning myself. So if you're sitting on your metaphorical bathroom floor, if you're feeling forgotten, less than, or like your life is waiting to begin when someone else shows up, please hear me, you are not behind. You are not broken. You are not incomplete. You are in the sacred, tender space where you learn how to belong to yourself first. And that is the most honest kind of love there is. A woman once told me during a retreat, "I'm afraid that if I get too good at being alone, I'll never let anyone in again." And I remember how she looked when she said it. Half laughing, half terrified. Like she knew how ridiculous it sounded, and yet she meant every word. And I got it. I really did. Because somewhere deep in us, many of us carry this fear. What if I become so whole, so fulfilled, so alive without a man that I forget how to need anyone? What if I become unlovable because I no longer feel incomplete? And that fear is real. It's not irrational, it's inherited. From the earliest age, we're taught to build our lives around someone else. Around his job, his dreams, his timeline. We're raised on fairy tales that end at the wedding, not on stories of women thriving on their own terms. We're taught to associate womanhood with nurturing, sacrificing, bending. So when a woman stops centering men, it doesn't just feel rebellious. It feels dangerous. Like we're breaking a rule we didn't even know we agreed to. And let's be honest, thriving without a man, That does make people uncomfortable. The world doesn't know what to do with a woman who owns her joy, who's not waiting, who doesn't define herself by being someone's other half. You feel it in conversations, the sideways glances, the awkward pauses after you say you're single and happy, the subtle pushback. Don't you want kids, though? Aren't you afraid of ending up alone? You're too amazing not to be with someone. As if being amazing should automatically be paired with being taken. As if your joy is only valid if it's shared with a man. Psychologists call this internalized patriarchy, the unconscious belief that men are central to a woman's fulfillment. That even if we say we're independent, deep down, we still measure success through the lens of whether or not a man has approved, pursued, or partnered with us. And that belief, it's sticky. It lingers in the corners of our self-worth, even when we think we've moved past it. So we hesitate. We dim our light. We silence our ambition just a little. We don't travel alone. We wait to buy the house. We pause the bold ideas. Not because we're incapable, but because somewhere we're afraid of thriving without him. Of proving to ourselves that we never really needed saving. But here's the sacred truth I've learned. Over and over again, your strength doesn't make you unlovable. It makes you sovereign. You weren't created to beg for softness, to play dumb to be adored, to shrink so someone else could feel tall. You were born to become the full, messy, brilliant version of yourself that doesn't apologize for being whole. And guess what? If the people around you feel threatened by that, by your peace, your purpose, your ability to create beauty without romantic attachment, that's not a reflection of your value. That's a reflection of the stories they haven't healed yet, because true love, healthy, grounded love, never asks you to unbecome. It never punishes your power. It never sees your thriving as a threat. So if you're afraid of thriving without a man, lean into that fear. Let it rise, let it speak. And then gently remind it you are allowed to be full. You are allowed to be radiant, even if no one claps, even if no one shares the spotlight, even if no man shows up at the end of the scene. Because your joy is not dangerous. It's divine. And you were never too much. You were just taught to be less. She was in her mid-30s, sitting across from me in a quiet circle of women. Her voice cracked a little when she said, "I was supposed to open my business 5 years ago, but I kept telling myself I'd start once I got married. I thought I needed that partnership to feel stable enough, to feel safe enough." She paused, eyes glossy. But he never came, and I never started. That sentence hit me like a freight train. Because how many of us do that? How many of us put our dreams, our expansion, our freedom on a shelf? Because we're waiting for someone else to give us permission to live fully. Not because we're weak, but because we were taught that safety comes from being chosen. It's the betrayal we don't recognize until years pass, and we realize we've been holding our breath, not for love, but for rescue. The story goes something like this: when he arrives, I'll start. When he loves me, I'll believe I'm enough. When I feel secure in a relationship, then I'll be brave enough to launch, to speak, to move, to heal. So we don't move cities. We don't buy the apartment. We don't travel alone, go back to school, write the book, or go all in. We tell ourselves, later, when I'm not alone, when I'm loved in the way I've been waiting for. But that's the betrayal, because the one we're abandoning is ourselves. In psychology, this is tied to the concept of external locus of control, the belief that our life outcomes are determined by forces outside ourselves. That love, stability, safety, identity all come from someone else's presence, actions, or approval. We become passive in our own becoming. And that kind of waiting slowly erodes your spirit. I know women who waited so long to be saved that they forgot how to save themselves. They forgot they had a voice. They forgot they were allowed to want things that didn't require a shared Google Calendar or a diamond ring to be valid. And I get it. I do. We live in a world that rewards women for being attached, not for being wild, not for being free, not for taking up space without explanation. We're praised for being loyal, for waiting, for being good women who don't move too fast or want too much. So we internalize this idea that doing things alone makes us desperate, reckless, pitiful. But the truth, waiting to be saved is the real desperation. Because the longer we wait for someone to give us permission to live fully, the more life we lose. And let me tell you something deeply honest. You are allowed to build the life you want, even if no one shows up to applaud it. You are allowed to stop delaying your dreams until a man enters the picture. You don't have to be engaged to deserve a Pinterest board. You don't have to be a wife to feel worthy of celebration. You don't need a man to be your safety net. You are your safety net. And when you stop waiting to be saved, something extraordinary happens. You become the one you've been waiting for. You start making decisions not based on fear or fantasy, but on truth. You learn how to hold yourself, to listen to your intuition, to honor your grief, your hunger, your brilliance, without asking for approval. And yes, it can be scary. There's no Prince Charming at the end of that page. There's just you, standing there, brave, awake, whole. You don't need to be chosen to be valuable. You don't need to be rescued to be safe. You don't need to be loved to live. You can begin now, without a ring, without a man, without waiting for a future that's never been promised. Start, not because someone arrived, but because you did. After my divorce, there was a season of quiet I didn't expect. People talk a lot about the heartbreak, the loneliness, the logistical nightmare of separating two lives. But what caught me off guard was the silence. The absence of someone checking in. The sudden lack of being seen in the small, ordinary ways. Did you sleep okay? How was your meeting? What do you want for dinner? Those little questions, they anchor you. They remind you that your existence registers on someone else's radar. So when they stop, something hollow opens up inside. For weeks, I felt like I was floating in a space where I had no reflection. Like I didn't fully exist anymore. Not in the way I used to. And then one night, I sat on my couch, holding a cup of tea I'd made just for myself, and this thought came in like a whisper. Can you be the source? Can you be the one who asked yourself, how are you doing, really? Can you celebrate your wins even if no one claps? Can you witness your own joy without needing it to be mirrored? And to be honest, I didn't know how to answer at first. Because we're taught to receive love, not generate it. Especially women. We are raised to wait for care, attention, sweetness. From parents, from teachers, from men, from friends. We are trained to outsource our emotional safety to others. But when no one is there to give it to you, what then? Do you just starve? Psychologists talk about self-attunement, the ability to recognize and respond to your own emotional needs with compassion. It's the difference between ignoring your pain and holding it gently, between numbing out and tuning in. It's the skill of parenting yourself when no one else does, of holding your own hand when life gets unbearable, of saying, I see you, even if no one else does. And it takes courage, so much courage. Because becoming the source means facing the terrifying idea that you might always have to be, that maybe no one is coming to fill in the gap, that maybe, just maybe, you'll have to be your own soft place to land. But what I've learned, what I know now, is that being your own source doesn't mean you've given up on love. It means you've stopped begging for it. It means you've stopped handing over the keys to your joy and peace and asking someone else to drive. It means you stop saying, I'll feel okay when someone cares, and start saying, I care. That's enough right now. So I started small. I made my bed not because someone would see it, but because it made me feel held. I bought flowers for myself. I whispered, I'm proud of you. When I finished something hard, I cried in my own arms without shame. I laughed out loud at a movie alone in my living room. And something started to shift. That silence that once felt like abandonment started to feel like intimacy. With me, that gap I was so afraid of wasn't a void after all. It was space. Sacred, holy space I could finally fill with my own love. You are not weak for needing love. You are not cold for learning to give it to yourself. You are becoming. You are returning. You are remembering that you have always been enough. Being the source doesn't mean you stop craving connection. It means you stop confusing connection with survival. You live fully, tenderly, loudly, quietly. Not because someone else finally saw you, but because you did. And that changes everything. I once sat across from a woman in her late 40s who told me, I've done everything right. The career, the kindness, the keeping my body small thing. I've been patient, generous, loyal, and I still wake up every morning wondering if I've failed just because I'm not married. Her voice cracked right there, on that word. Failed. And I knew exactly what she meant. Because when society hands you a blueprint that says, you are enough if you're wanted, if you're chosen, if you're loved by a man, then being single feels like a verdict, like the world is quietly shaking its head, saying you didn't make it. That's not just painful. That's identity destroying. And the truth is, most women don't even realize they're operating from this wound until it's exposed. Until another wedding invitation arrives. Until they see another engagement post captioned, "I finally found my forever." Until someone at a family gathering asks, "Why are you still single?" As if your wholeness is somehow in question. You can be a CEO, a poet, a healer, a world changer, and still feel like you're not enough if a man hasn't looked at you and said, "Yes, you're the one." That's how deep the narrative runs. It's a script embedded in every fairy tale we were read as girls. It's the hidden subtext of every compliment wrapped in romance. Any man would be lucky to have you. It's the way people assume your life is incomplete, unfinished, in wait-in, until someone else fills in the blank. And so we start to internalize the lie that we're not enough unless we're paired, that our lives don't count unless they revolve around someone else's. Psychologists call this contingent self-worth, where your value is dependent on outcomes or relationships. It's not rooted in who you are, it's hinged on how others respond to you. And it's brutal, because it means that no matter how much you grow, succeed, heal, or love, if you're not validated by a romantic partner, it all feels less. But let me offer you a truth I had to wrestle down with tears and therapy and long walks through lonely seasons. You are not a draft waiting for an editor. You are not a recipe missing ingredients. You are not a prequel to some man's main character energy. You are the whole book, the full symphony, the painted canvas already hanging proudly on the wall. And I'm not saying that love isn't beautiful. It is. But it should be an addition, not a completion. It should fit into your life like an echo of what you already know to be true. I am already worthy. I am already full. I am already home in myself. There is nothing missing in you. You were not born with a half heart waiting to be filled. That's a myth. And here's the thing no one told us. When you let go of the story that says you need to be loved by a man to be worthy, your life doesn't shrink. It expands. You laugh harder. You breathe deeper. You choose differently, not from scarcity or fear, but from joy, from desire, from truth. Because when you're no longer waiting to be chosen, you begin to choose yourself. You choose rest. You choose boundaries. You choose the people who nourish your soul, not just the ones who text back. You become less tolerant of crumbs because you finally believe you're worthy of the feast. Enoughness isn't a destination someone carries to your doorstep. It's a decision you make every single morning when you remember, I don't need to be someone's to belong to myself. So rewrite the script. Tear it up if you have to. Burn the old story that said love is proof of your value. And in its place, write this: I am not waiting to be loved. I am learning to love the life I have. And that is enough. This isn't about bitterness. This isn't about giving up on love. This is about reclaiming your wholeness. So the next time someone says, "Don't you want a man?" you can smile and say, "I want peace more. I want purpose more. And if love comes, it will meet me in a life I already love living." Because you are not the half. You are the whole. And the life you're building without waiting, that's what joy really looks like.